Welcome back to the Peer Purpose Podcast. So delighted to be here with you on this journey. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. That was from one of our main listeners and how not to become codependent in a relationship. And I hope you enjoyed that. Continue to feed off that. Again, you're going to get the tools on this podcast that you're going to need in order to be successful in life. When things come at you, and not always the storms of life, but even the triumphs, how do you handle the successes? How do you handle the failures? And so continue pressing in. I'm proud of you. I mentioned a little bit briefly in the last episode that I was going to be talking on a subject coming up. And so I decided just to, let's attack it head on. Let's do it. And so I said, I'm going to be talking about things that parents need to be talking to their kids about. And so I just decided to make that an episode. And we're going to go in. And so I'm going to put a little disclaimer in this thing. Parents, I'll be honest, it's going to be a little bit heavy. If you're listening with your kid, I understand that there's some topics that aren't typically talked about in front of everybody, right? That you maybe be uncomfortable with your kid to talk about, but it's important that you talk about it. So I'm just going to put a disclaimer. David, I want you to put a disclaimer right here. Some of these topics are going to be you introducing your kids at the right time. So if you feel like a kid right now, I'm just going to tell you, pull a kid away if you don't want them to know about certain topics yet in their life. If you listen with them, I know a few listeners who listen actually with their kids. And so the things that parents should be talking to their kids about, okay, I'm going to give you a few main ones, okay? And yes, there is going to be the sex word involved in this. This is the biggest thing that I see parents not being able to communicate with their kids as far as what are the topics they need to be talking about? What should I be talking about? What shouldn't I be talking about? Okay. And sex is one of them. And I tell parents all the time that I have relationship with, I tell parents, I say, you need to be educating your kids about sex. That's one of the topics you need to be talking to your kids about, because if you don't, what's going to happen is they're going to get an education in that from people that you're not necessarily going to want them to learn from. And if you just expect to not say anything like, well, I'm just not going to mention it, I promise you later on, there is going to be a circumstance that happens in their life that's going to be hard to navigate for you and them. Okay. There's a stigma on this topic. I understand that. Okay. In fact, it can be uncomfortable to have this conversation. I've said that before. But I will tell you this, it's going to cost you way more in the long run if you aren't the ones that are talking to your kids about this. I'm telling you. And let me tell you something, parents. Don't tell your kids, well, you can go do this, but you better not come home pregnant, or you better not get anybody pregnant. Because I'm just going to say it. What do you expect if you don't educate them? I'm telling you right now, this is one of the biggest mistakes I see parents making. They don't want to say anything, and so they just expect the education to come. But parents, the question I ask you is, how are your kids going to know if you don't tell them? You can't just expect them to learn this. You need to be the ones to talk to them about this topic. You need to tell them, hey, you need to look for this, this, and this. This is why it's important not to do this. This is why it's important to wait here, okay? Because I'm telling you right now, the biggest thing that's going to happen is if you don't do that, you're going to look for a disaster on your hands, okay? So instead, get to the fact where you say, hey, you're making adult decisions if you do this. And with adult decisions, there's going to be adult consequences. And I'm just going to be honest with you, okay? You're going to give a piece of yourself away, and you are gambling with your heart. Educate the kids on why it's important, why love is important, what love means, asking them questions about it. And so when it comes down to it, when they're at school and a kid, any kid's going to try to get them to do something, they could say, nope, my mom and dad talked to me about this. So I know what's important and what's proper, and this is not it. Or if an adult approaches them, right? Let's talk about the real. That happens in today's society. They could say, nope, my parents talked to me about this. You have to be the ones that educate your kids, especially on this topic. There's a plethora of topics, but I'm only going to cover a few today. But you have to be the ones. I know someone, and for the sake of the story, I'm just going to kind of keep this vague, but I know someone when they were in high school, their mom sat them down on the bed and said, I don't want you doing this, but if you're going to do it, I want you to be safe, and handed them a bag of condoms. Well, what did that do? The person that was supposed to love them and protect them just gave them permission to go and damage their heart. And this person, it damaged this person for many, many years. Now, I happen to know that this person is on a great path today, but for a while, that one brief moment, that night, set him down a precedent in this area of his life, okay? And so I want that to be known. If your kids are not being educated by you, they're going to get educated by someone you don't want them to be, okay? Educated by. So I want that to be clear today, all right? And here's the thing with this. It actually says, okay, did some research recently, and it says that according to many sites, the first exposure to kids for porn, adult porn, sex, whatever you want to say, they say is 11. I actually think that's wrong. I think it's way earlier than that. I know families that their kids were exposed at kindergarten. That's what, 5 years old? They were exposed at 5 years old, 4 years old, right? And so they're being exposed at a younger and younger age because, one, they're going to school with kids from different backgrounds that have different values in the homes that they live in. And so some of those kids are being exposed to things at an early age. Well, therefore, what are they going to do? They're going to come to school and they're going to start sharing it with their friends. Hey, I saw my mom, or I found this under my parents' bed, or whatever. And now we have phones and we have access to every single thing in the click of a finger, right? And so now it's more accessible than it's ever been. But I think this number is actually off, okay? And let me tell you something else about this topic. You talking to your kids about this actually makes them less susceptible to sexual abuse. Because, again, they understand where you stand on this. What is right? What is wrong? What to look for? What to listen to? Okay? And more likely to delay that actual sexual intercourse until later ages. Okay? And so that's HAAparenting.com. Okay, just wanted to put that in there. In case you wanted to go look for yourself. But there's so much today that our kids are being educated by that may not be you. And parents, I want you to be down the road and have your kids, come down and say, Mom, remember when I was like 8 years old and you had that conversation with me about this topic? And because you did that, that shaped me for the next how many years, my middle school, my high school years. And I just want you to know I was put in a position where I could have made some decisions that would have been bad. But because you told me, or Dad, you told me what the truth was on this, I was able to avoid that pitfall. I'm telling you right now, okay? So we have to be the ones talking to our kids about this. Parents, I urge you, do not let this topic slip by you. I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's not easy to talk about, but if you don't, someone else will. Another thing, okay, that you need to be talking to your kids about is if they're uncomfortable, okay, in certain situations, whether it be at school, whether it be around friends, okay, you need to be talking about that, okay? It would be wise to use a safe word in that, okay? At any point in time, your kids are with friends or even adults that they feel uncomfortable with, they literally can call you and give you that word, and you know right there they are trying to abort that situation, okay? How else will you know if your kids are in a situation they don't want to be in? Okay, I know a family that they use pretty please. If the kid calls and says, hey, can I stay at so-and-so's house pretty please? The mom automatically knows something's wrong and they go and get them. Okay. Or if they're in a situation out with friends at the like YMCA or the mall or name any situation, and they call and say, hey, can you pretty please come and get me? Or can I pretty please stay longer or whatever it is? They know automatically, red flags going off. I got to go. And matter of fact, I know this parent even said, use me anytime you want as a scapegoat if you feel uncomfortable. What makes them uncomfortable? Are you talking to your kids about this? Are you asking them the right questions? Are you asking them when it comes down to like, hey, are you comfortable at school? Is there anybody around you that makes you feel uncomfortable? Being able to have these conversations is going to save you a lot of heartache in the long run. And I'm telling you, and I know, I'll be honest, this topic's a little risky for me to cover, right? But if we don't tell them, how will they know? And I would just want to be the one to be out there to say, hey, like, I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of things. Like, I get messages all the time from kids all over the world. Every week I'm getting 1 to 5 DMs or emails or whatever it is. And I'm telling you, parents, there's a lot of things you don't know about your kids. I'm just telling you that right now. There's things that they're not sharing with you, right? There's things. Well, Bobby, how do you know that? Because they tell me. There's a lot of battles that these young ones are fighting that they don't feel comfortable sharing with people, especially their parents or their family. And here's why. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm going to challenge you today. It's probably because they don't have a safe place. It's probably because there's never been room made for them to be able to have that conversation. Okay. And so there's a lot of things you need to be asking the right questions. And just because your kids, if you say, well, how was your day? And they say, well, it was fine. Well, that doesn't mean it was fine. Parents, I'm urging you to build a relationship with your kids that they feel safe opening up to you about the things that they are walking through, the inner struggles that they may be walking through, the triumphs that they're receiving, that they're having, in certain areas of their life. I encourage you just to open that line up. Okay. Parents, you are important. You matter in these kids' lives. Please do not let the internet or anything else raise your kids. I'm telling you, there's some stuff out there that you don't want them to get a hold of. And in a world where we can look out there and be like, wow, there's 1,000 things I have to try to feel I can land on today. Where do I land? You have to be the one to tell them where to land. Okay. So if they're uncomfortable, okay, get that word going. Okay. Another thing, boundaries. Okay. It would be so important if you haven't done this to this point. If you're doing this, kudos to you. Okay. To put parameters around your kids early. Parameters around what they watch, what they listen to, the friends that they hang out with, the places that they go. It's going to be super important for you to put the boundaries on them early. Lay the foundation for what you want your kids to be solid in. It's up to you to lay the foundation for them. Sure, they're going to learn things. Part of getting older and learning independence is seeing, what can I do without mom? What can I do without dad? Okay. They're going to have to put their hand on the stove a little bit, burn it, and say, ooh, ouch, that way didn't go well for me, right? So there's going to be a part of that independence that's going to be in them, but placing the boundaries around their life early is actually going to help them as they shape that part of their lives going forward when it comes to learning their independence, okay? And so understand that. I believe many youth want structure. I just do. I believe they want structure, and they want to be in a situation, okay, where they're actually saying, okay, where can I live? And they want to be told what to do, because here's the deal. You hand them responsibility, okay, and you hand them freedom. That's what we get when we do that, right? But here's the deal with that. freedom without responsibility is chaotic. Okay, I believe I mentioned that in the podcast before. So in the parameters, there's responsibility in that because there's boundaries that they have to live within, okay? But there's also freedom that they can experience within that, right? And without that, if you just say, well, go do whatever you want, that's going to be chaotic because it's freedom, sure. You know, it's just like I remember when I first went off to college. I was 18 years old. I was 4 hours from home. I didn't have a curfew. I remember the first few months of school rolling into my dorms at 3, 4 in the morning. Now, I was a different person back then than I am now, of course. But rolling into my dorm at 3, 4 in the morning. And I was on the football team. Like I had a class in the morning and different things. Like, dude, this isn't really, and after a while I had to cut that out because I was like, and obviously I didn't have a grid for that back then, that freedom without responsibility is chaos. But, it became to the point I was like, man, I got to start putting some boundaries in place here or whatever I said at the time, because this isn't going to be sustainable, right? And so I believe they all want structure, and you have to put that structure down early. And when you do that, they're going to start saying, okay, this is where I live within, right? These are my bounds, my guardrails, so to speak, right? I'm driving within the lines here. And within these lines, there's a lot I can do. My parents are letting me do these things or letting me figure things out. But if you say, hey, it's all yours, no, that's not going to be good in the long run, okay? So I want us to understand that. Okay? What do you have in place so your kids feel safe? I just said that. So they feel safe coming to you and sharing about their internal battles, okay? Parents, if you don't have anything, it's not too late. You can still put it in place. But parents, I'm going to challenge you. You can't give what you don't have. And so if you don't have it, I would recommend going to get it. If you have to talk to someone about the things you've been through, please go do that. Because your kids are going to be as successful as what you instill into them. Okay? So I want us to understand that. What else? Social media. That's another thing. What boundaries are you putting on that? Okay? What boundaries are you putting on social media? Okay? Are you letting them have all the social medias? You let them have Snapchat and TikTok and all the above, right? And everything they want. Or do you say, you know what? We're going to give you this and this. Okay? It's okay to say you can't have everything, right? Again, I know a friend. Their kids have to come to them and say, hey, can I have this? One of the things I will tell you that I think is good, and if it's wrong, if I'm wrong down the road, I don't think I am, but if I'm wrong, is Be Real, okay? I just got that app not long ago, and it is actually good, and here's why it's good. You post one picture a day. There's a time where it goes off, and you post a picture in the moment. It takes a front camera picture and a back camera picture, okay? And you take one picture, and there's no DMing or anything. You can comment on someone's photos, and you can react to it by liking it, but that's it. I actually really like it. All the kids love it right now. And so it may be a dinosaur in the near future, but I do think it's a good start to social media to say you get one picture a day, post it, boom. And it's actually kind of fun because, you could be at Walmart getting groceries when it goes off. I could be shooting a podcast when it goes off, and I just take it in the moment, right? And so thus the name Be Real. Right in the moment. And so that's a good, and everything else, again, you just have to talk to your kid about that. What is good for them to have? Okay. And so for that, I'll leave that up to you, what you feel. Okay. But again, being able to have those conversations, friends they are choosing. This is a big one too. Are you looking at the friends that they're choosing? Okay. Not saying controlling them, because that's not going to work either, because control is rooted in fear, and we want to stay away from that. But at the same time, it's one of those situations where, what are you placing boundaries on, right? Obviously, early on, they're going to meet friends in different places. Some of them, you're going to hang out. You're going to see how they interact within, if you bring them over, they're hanging out. You can see how they interact with things. But one of the things to look for in this is watch how your kids act when they're around these people, okay? So, like, if they have siblings and they bring a friend over and they're being mean to their siblings because of the friend, that's probably not a good sign, and that's probably not someone you want them to be around long term. So being able to have those boundaries on the friends they're choosing, right? Again, not controlling them, but just saying, asking those questions. Hey, how do you feel when you're around this person? Do you feel they're a good influence on you? and just being able to have those conversations. And some of them, again, the kids will have to learn. Okay. And then also with responsibility, talking about when the money runs out, right? That maybe they just don't get unlimited Fortnite skins. Okay. Maybe you've worked out an allowance with them and they get a certain amount. And when that's gone, it's gone. And no, you can't float them or whatever. Obviously, you're going to take care of them, right? But even teaching them early how to deal with money, okay? A lot of people don't get this education in their household. They're not taught how to do that. And it's important that you can teach them that, all right? Parents, I'll be honest, some of you give a lot of great advice, okay? But you don't always tell your kids how, okay? You don't give them that roadmap that they need to walk it out. It's good to give advice, but you also got to give the how. Well, how do I get there, Mom? How do I get there, Dad? What are some things I can do right now to put myself in a good position? And you start, when they start coming to you asking those questions, this is how you start forming it. And again, this isn't just these topics. There's many topics that you need to be talking to your kids about. Maybe failure, how they handle failure. That's a good conversation to have. But the education needs to come from home. Okay? The education needs to come from home. And I understand that you maybe not have got the education beforehand. When you were growing up, times are different. I'm not going to let anyone else teach my kids one day when I get kids. It's not going to happen. It's going to come from me. Okay? You're going to be okay. I'm with you. Parents, reach out to me. PurePurposePodcast@gmail.com. I'm here for you. Okay? I would just hope that you can be in a position that if you need the help, you'll ask for it like I tell your kids to do. But keep climbing. There's so much gold inside of you. It's going to help you walk the greatness outside of you. Okay? We're only just getting started. The journey is long, and the successes are going to be amazing. Okay? And no matter what, you're going to learn about this thing called life. I love y'all. See you next time.